Mobile gaming. It is a cesspit of microtransaction, exploitation, misery, malware, sleaziness, privacy invading, data collecting oversteps, and just the absolute worst, most abhorrently vile and toxic moral corruption from developers and publishers that have ever touched the gaming industry. And given how shitty some of the gaming industry at large already is, that's really saying something, I think. I've tested, reviewed, and owned a variety of devices to mechanically connect controllers to mobile phones with a broad range of success in providing something with both functionality and tactility as pleasant as a mainstream console control pad, or, like you see here, a simple frame to use a proper controller on the phone, which, while offering up the most faithful and usually pleasant experience, rather lack in ergonomics as the weight and center of gravity and balance and general feel is heavily compromised. Hello again, I am Blunty, and as far as mobile gaming controllers go, nothing I've tried yet is without a compromise that is negligible enough to call it a truly good gaming experience, not just a functionally useful or good enough one. Oh, controllers like the Razer Kishi I have here that are, they're pretty good. Pretty damn good, really. I don't remember exactly what I said in my original review of it, but, I liked it. But it's still not great. Oh, and the one I have here, it's an Android model that was sent in for review from Razer directly, which, since the review, I have frankly just not used. Well, except for once when I made a video about Genshin Impact and its cross-platform stuff, because, well, I use an iPhone as my daily driver, which makes a Android version of this controller useless to me in any other way. Genshin Impact's launch on mobile is also the very last time I think I played a mobile native game on my phone. And you know what, just on that note, let's circle back to the controllers in a second, because I need a rant. Because in fact, I have for years now told any mobile game developer or publisher who emails me to review, or worse still, promote for cash, their latest microtransaction festooned garbage to fuck all the way off. And I do use those words, by the way, because it makes sure they don't contact me again. If you're polite about it, they'll try again. If you're really, really rude about it, usually they'll take you off the fucking mailing lists. Pro tip, any other creators out there. Because I genuinely see them as a cancer of the industry, and I tell them that sometimes too. Because so much of the worst, most abusive, most manipulative, most exploitative misery that we see, even in mainstream gaming today, was born on the mobile gaming platforms. I dare you to tell me that I'm wrong to tell these insidious carcinogens in human skins to fuck off. I am morally right to do so. I am morally obligated to do so as far as I'm concerned. They are intolerable monsters, and they should be told to fuck off out of the industry. But also, on the same hand, our mobile devices are quite powerful these days, and there are screens in particular with rich colors, high refresh rates, and scalpel-sharp clarity thanks to high resolution teamed up on small screens, do in fact lend themselves to a pretty decent way to present games. So, in comes the much more attractive option, at least to me, the ability to stream games to them. Either direct from our own consoles right in our own home, as I'm doing here, or even out in the world across mobile data networks, although that has a lower success rate at delivering satisfying results just by the nature of the data speeds, congestion, latency, and lag, and all that kind of stuff. But still, in ideal circumstances, it works surprisingly well. And then you've got services that stream from hardware on the cloud, which to anyone with half a brain translate to someone else's computer over there, which you have no control, ownership, or security of your own data on. The cloud is just a friendly, fluffy marketing name to trick morons into trusting it with their data. Don't do that. But for gaming at least though, it has its practical uses. You've got NVIDIA with the GeForce Now service. I tested this in the field in its very earliest beta days. In fact, I don't even know it was beta yet. It might have been just sort of alpha stage stuff. It was when I went to E3 in 2016 on a trip sponsored by NVIDIA themselves. So they sent me up and I streamed PC games to my hotel television over hotel Wi-Fi, and it worked surprisingly well given all that because, well, especially in 2016, especially considering it was a very cheap hotel they put me up in, I was surprised it worked at all, let alone as good as it did over hotel Wi-Fi. I have in fact not tried their service since then because frankly, I don't need that service. I have my own hardware sitting right next to me right now as I record this. And plus it costs 20 friggin' bucks a month in Aussie dollary dues to subscribe to the service. There is a free tier, but that is more of a trial service than anything practical given its significant limitations. There's also Amazon Luna, a service as yet entirely unavailable to Australians. I have no experience with it at all. I have no idea if it ever will be available to Australians. But given the strength of Amazon's web infrastructure, I imagine it's probably on pretty solid footing. And from what I've read, it seems pretty basic, but it's a smooth experience. And then, of course, there's Google Stadia, which you should never ever use or invest in, least of all, a service so entirely expected to fail and fold and disappear overnight when a rumor leaked out quite recently that Stadia was about to be shuttered and abandoned. Google were forced to issue a formal press release just to deny it because we are all expecting it to fail and die sooner or later, so they really had to squash that rumor instead of just letting it fade away as just yet another bullshit pull out of your ass tech rumor. Because it was so believable that Google would abandon Stadia just overnight. And make no mistake, while Google denies they're abandoning it now, it will, mark my words, inevitably plummet into absolute obscurity and be abandoned without so much as a press release from Google, like so many other Google projects before it. Google is a company so notorious for abandoning shit, there's a whole website called killedbygoogle.com to keep track of it all. All 272 Google projects abandoned and killed so far, anyway. But regardless of how you feel about mobile gaming or platform game streaming to mobile devices, there's one thing you need, undeniably, a good controller. Because touchscreen controls for games designed to be played with physical controllers is just a universally miserable experience. It is just awful. Just truly, truly awful. Which brings us back to things like the Backbone One. This came across my desk yesterday. As coincidence would have it, as a matter of fact, I was dicking about with Spider-Man on my PS5. See, I booted it up to check on some controller configuration stuff because I'm trying to decide on what controller I want to use when the PC port launches in just over a week. See, I would use my secondary DualSense controller, the one I'm using on the phone right now. Obviously, as a previously Sony exclusive game, that makes the most sense. It was designed with this controller in mind, especially the remaster, which brings over some of the Miles Morales features like the force feedback trigger stuff. Unfortunately, because Sony are inherently inept, the DualSense is functionally crippled when used on a PC, with several features, including the force feedback triggers, just not working at all on PC unless you use the controller enslaved to a USB cable at all times. And as a man who grew up in gaming when wireless controllers were not the default standard and saw the transition to wireless controllers being the default standard, there is no way I want to go back to wired controllers, thank you very much. It is admittedly a relatively mild annoyance, but it is an annoyance and an inconvenience and an ergonomic compromise all the same, and I don't want that. Why can't the DualSense just work properly on a PC? Anyway, the Spider-Man game is so spectacularly addictive, my quick look at controller config stuff turned into a 3-hour marathon of dicking around beating up street crooks and then booting up the Miles Morales version of the game and doing the same thing for another 2 hours. God damn it, that game is good. So, once I tore myself away from the games, I saw that Sony had announced the Backbone One PlayStation Edition. A very slick-looking mobile clamp-style controller. Very attractive, very interesting, very, very desirable, perhaps. The press release reads, "The look and feel of the Backbone One PlayStation Edition was brought to life by our design team in collaboration with the brilliant minds at PlayStation. The elegant colors, materials, and finishes are all inspired by the design of the PS5 console's DualSense wireless controller, all the way down to the transparent face buttons and its visually distinctive floating appearance. It feels right at home with the other products in the PS5 lineup, like the Pulse 3D headset, which you can connect directly to the Backbone One PlayStation Edition." And that's all cool, unless you actually already know about the existing Backbone One product, which has been around since 2020. designed based on the Xbox styling and button layout and such, and in fact designed in collaboration with Astro, whose headsets I've used, but I don't think I've ever used their controllers, but you know, they do a fair few controllers for mobile devices and third-party console stuff. So, in their press release, when they say, it was brought to life by our design team in collaboration with the brilliant minds at PlayStation, what they actually mean is they took a 2-year-old Xbox design product, changed the color of some of the parts, put different labels on the buttons, and then tried to convince people it's a PlayStation controller approved by PlayStation, designed by PlayStation, but for your phone. Yikes, that's some sleazy marketing bullshittery. That's just, oh dear. It's been a while since I've read one that just disappearing up its own arsetude. And let me tell you, there's a reason I have never actually tried the Backbone one, despite it being around for 2 years already. And it's because they want to charge 180 Aussie bucks for it, which is 65% more expensive than a full-on, first-party, brand-spanking-new PlayStation 5 DualSense controller itself, which is already one of the most expensive controllers on the market. So being 65% more expensive than that is just absurd. And why anyone would pay that for a controller for their phone is beyond me, especially seeing as you can't even use it wirelessly if you want to, it's plug-in only. Hilariously, their marketing blurb includes continued claims that it will be, I quote, mind-blowing, and, I quote again, even magical. It's got magic in it. Fuck the laws of physics, it's magic. What a stinking load of bullshit. Most hilariously though, especially given the fanboy outrage that triggers every time I mention how I think the symmetrical thumbstick layout of Sony's controllers, and that they have slavishly continued with for ever now, instead of the more ergonomically and sensibly ergonomic asymmetrical layout Xbox, Nintendo, and pretty much everyone else uses, unless they're deliberately trying to copycat PlayStation. Sony's magical design input on this device, however, did not extend to mirroring their own dogged determination to stick with the clumsier, symmetrical, bottom-edge, clumsy-ass thumbstick layout, which feels pretty half-assed for something you're trying to pawn off and brand to be attractive to Sony pony loyalists. Oh, look at how much of a PlayStation this controller is. Look, it looks and feels just like all the other PlayStation stuff. Oh, except the layout's just not the same as the other PlayStation stuff, because all we did was recolor the Xbox one. For context on price, by the way, let's circle back to that. The Razer Kishi that I've got here is about the same cost as an Xbox Series controller, so already cheaper than a first-party PlayStation controller. And it does not claim to be able to shatter your very mind or induce sorcery. Perhaps that's where they're saving money. A little bit less magic inside. There's also a new version of this controller announced last month, and I'm interested in taking a look at it because it has a more rigid backplane, larger grips, and is generally designed to more closely feel like a quote-unquote normal controller. So that's very promising. It could be quite good. But as my budget is extremely tight right now, and it's been a while since Razer have sent me any review shit to look at, so I probably won't be reviewing it anytime soon, so don't hold your breath for that. But hey, it's your chance to chime in now. Do you use a controller on your mobile device for gaming? How often? And if you do use one, what's your preference? What's one you like using? Or actually, perhaps even more informatively, what's the worst experience you've had with a mobile phone controller? Let me know in the down below, while I once again thank the patrons for the above and beyond support they throw my way each and every month. Thank you so much for that, guys. Thank you to the rest of you for making it to the end of the video. I am Lutty, and I will catch you next time.